Welcome to a Wednesday here on Kobold Chats. I see we've got a few new people with us and a few return folks. So for all of you that are new to chat, welcome to Wednesday afternoons here on our Twitch channel. I am Little Red Dot. You can just call me Dot. I am our Twitch producer, and we spend our Wednesday afternoons celebrating everything that is Kobold Press. So we do a little hour-long show. We had plans this week for Mr. Turesk to rejoin us as our guest, GM at the table when we were going to chat about some stuff. But he's not very well today. He's a little sick. So we're sending all of our Kobold love to Mr. Turesk. And today, instead, I have a completely impromptu. My goodness, look at all the subscriptions. Thank you so much. We have a completely impromptu GM prep session because I am excited to announce that as of this upcoming Monday, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, we will kick off a brand new campaign of Courts of the Shadow Fey. I'm going to be GMing, which is my first actual GM campaign here for Kobold, which is kind of huge. So I'm very excited about that. And in addition, we have started announcing our cast. So up today, I believe, is the great and wonderful and superb fantastic human being I adore, Rockette Fox. You may have seen her around. She's done a few TTRPG things. She has her own Twitch channel, and I love her as a role player. So she's going to be joining the table along with some other people that I can't say yet because I think they haven't actually been announced. So you just have to keep a look over on our social media. Pick your choice, your flavor, the Facebooks, the Twitter. I don't know if we have an Insta. I bet we do. Knowing Victoria, we got an Instagram. Yeah, Fox is going to be joining us here. I've pulled her into Kobold Chats, or into Kobold Press. So a few weeks ago, before Mr. Turesk joined us, I had an opportunity to kind of do a surface view of this campaign and talk about where I start prepping for a campaign. And so we kind of got like a brief start, but now my players, we've had our session 0, which we talked a lot about last time. How to prep for that, how to communicate for it, how to assure that for a game like this where we're dealing with a lot of elitism and classism, that we're all on the same page and we've created a safe environment for everyone. But now that they're making characters and simmering on backstories and trying to decide which class they're going to play or which, so it's I've got more to simmer on now, I think, with all of you. So I don't want to give too much away because you got to have some surprises, right? But I am excited to kind of crack back open Courts of the Shadow Fey, which is, of course, a Kobold Press original, and take a look at, my goodness, so many gifted subs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There is clearly a lot of hype there in chat today. I'm going to say this because y'all missed me. Y'all missed me. I know it. I'm excited. So, try not to spoil too much because, there's no matter what, no matter how much prep you do as a GM, it is inevitable that your players are going to just do things that you could not possibly have planned for. So, I say we dive in. Let me think if I've got any additional announcements. I don't think so. Another one of the Warlock books dropped, everybody. So if you're a Patreon supporter, know that content is just churning out. It's coming. And I think that an announcement was made that more had arrived. So you should have some new things there. Yes, goodness, so many wonderful, so many subs. Y'all are quickly filling my little bar up there. Thanks, right here at the end of the month. And don't forget, if you have a Prime account, an Amazon Prime account, you can always gift a Prime sub for free. It costs you nothing, and we still get all the benefit of it. So, those subscriptions help this channel kind of stay going, pay our incredible cast that's coming out, and more importantly, it takes us from Kobold to Swobold. So, pew pew! All right, let's see. Anything else I got? Nope, that's it. I say we dive in, because, we only got an hour. Y'all know I can talk, so we'll have a chance for some questions, and really this because we're going to be diving into kind of more of the story piece of Courts of the Shadow Fey as I prep for the first act of this game. It would be awesome if all of you have questions to just toss it out there, so. Tillers, that duck is adorable. Can we just talk about that duck emote? How cute is that? That is so cute. Okay, here we go. I'm going to transition over because that's what I do. So I got my great Roll20. Ooh, I can't show you those names because that is going to give away who's playing in my campaign. How do I want to do this? Okay, well, we're going to start by, I don't want to give away too much of Roll20 chat either. Oh man, I can't hide my players from all of you. You have a strong desire to play a warlock. I want to think that we may end up with a warlock here too. So, well, you know what? What do I always say on Kobold Chats? If you're here, I'm bound to spill some beans. So if you're all here, you're going to get a sneak preview of a couple more of our players that haven't been announced. Oh, gasp. All right, let's do this. All right, look what I got. I got some pretty awesome Roll20 stuff happening here. Yeah. Make sure my audio is still sourced appropriately. Yeah, okay, that's good too. All right, we might even prep some music. I know a lot of people ask, like, how do you do your music? How do you, I get that question a lot of, like, how do you do live music, live production? And how do you kind of choose when's the right moment? Because oftentimes players will find, can find the music or background music kind of distracting, I guess you could say. And the last thing you want is to distract your players because you put so much effort into prepping this campaign. But it happens. So, like, when is the right moment? What is the right, like, choice for that? So, all right. I recentered myself a little bit, so I'm not so off-center. All right, so let's take a look here. So this campaign starts in the Midgard city of Zobek. You've heard us talk about Zobek. We closed out a campaign in Zobek, not but a few weeks back. Me too, Origami. I love picking out music. Yeah, cover it with a Post-it note. Don't spoil it. Yeah, 10 of 10 ducks going strong. So this campaign starts in Zobek. Your players, why they're here or why the PCs are here is kind of entirely up to you. But there is an inciting incident that kind of kicks this whole campaign off, which is an assassination attempt. Now, what I find most interesting is that in the assassination attempt prompt, now, for all of you who are unfamiliar with Roll20, well, boy, howdy, will we get a good peek at it today. Because Courts of the Shadow Fey is in its entirety and is pre-prepped with maps and everything. So if you want to run this campaign and you're still living that life of social distancing, which I hope you still are, though please get your shot, you have everything you need. You have it all right here, right in Roll20. It is a pre-made campaign, PH. It is. Now, this is very interesting because... So it is a campaign, but it is set in a very interesting part of Midgard, right? The Fey courts or the Shadow realm. Let me see. Let me grab. Here we go. I'm going to swing open my handy dandy Midgard World book, and I'm going to. Here we go. Shadow Fey. That's what I was looking for. So it always helps to know what you're walking into, right? And, last time we did this, we read the letter from, Wolfgang, right? That talks about elitism as villainy in this world, as this kind of villainous act, and kind of the innate evil of elves, in this world, or the Fae in this way, specifically the elves. But, so I'm just gonna read this, because I think it's very helpful. As best as anyone can determine, the Shadow Fey were once elves and goblins who swore undying and eternal fealty to Sarastra, the goddess of night and magic, and were embraced by her heralds and ambassadors of the Shadow Realm. Now, this arrangement granted them great power over Shadow and a Twilight Kingdom in the Shadow Realm, though at the cost of abandoning their homes and loved ones and turning to the night sky and the stars as their guiding light. The Shadow Fey despise sunlight and bear great affection for things of darkness and shadow. Shadow Fey are courtly, swift, and powerful spellcasters with special talents as enchanters, illusionists, and weavers of shadow stuff. They are prone to corruption and melancholy, though they hold feasts and revel in the old style, as the Midgard elves did when their kingdoms were still whole. The Shadow Fey have a great love of hunting, trickery, and duels, and they retain powerful hound horses, and hunting owls. Though a hound horse, new idea, new monster, happy mistakes. So they have this great love of hunting, trickery, and duels. They retain powerful hounds, horses, and hunting owls to assist them in finding and destroying the enemies of their eternal king and queen, and expanding the power of the Shadow Realm. It looks like they have kind of two schools of magic, which they like. Adept, Illumination and Shadow are the two they are most adept in. Deep Magic, I believe, has a lot of stuff on that. I'm very excited to run this adventure. It's the one I've actually had my eyes on, I think, the most of all of ours. Like, obviously, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming with Southlands, and, we've got Empire of the Ghouls, which is the one that just dropped, actually, back at the end of the year. But I'm very excited about this in particular. So, as you can imagine, based on the kind of dark edge of this, this court is the court of the Fey Queen, or this court is a little, dark around the edges, right? It's gonna be, they're not necessarily great people. Oh, PH, don't you worry. There is gonna be some courtly dueling if I have anything to do with it at all. I'm very excited for a few courtly duels. My players have chosen, so we have a druid in the group, probably the most disconnected from the Shadow Realm as a whole, but a far traveler nonetheless, and a far traveler in Midgard wants to see every corner of it, which, by the way, is a huge piece of land. If you don't know anything about the Midgard, guess what? I got you a free map. I say that. Midgard map? Oh, there it goes. It was just delayed. There's a map link there. That takes you to our online Midgard map that's fully interactive. You can search for things, so if you want to figure out where Zobak is in comparison where we're going. Man, that was just a very delayed link. So, they're starting out in the city of Zobek. Now, Zobek is the free city of Zobek here in Midgard, making it the kind of ideal place for somebody that may want to do things their own way, because different kinds of slavery exist all over Midgard, but not in the free city of Zobek. So the reason why they're all here is kind of up to you, but the fact of the matter is they come across it kind of sits right here, this young man who, wherever or however they're starting, comes in and interrupts them to tell them that thugs are threatening the priest of the sun. And, I love this. Blood may be spilled on holy ground. So, I love the Shadow Fey toughs. The Shadow Fey toughs. The toughs are threatening both the priest of the sun god and, I believe, a novice priest, yes, as well. And so there's this instant moment at the top of the game where the stakes are very high, and your players have to make a choice. Do they run after this kid? Because he does not stay to talk to talk with them, right? He says, I must find help, not gabble, follow me. So they have to choose pretty early on. So you got to set the stakes high. And the question is, do they go run and save them, or do they not? And then it kind of gives you both options here, which is like, if they run, they do get a combat kind of right out of the bat to help save them. And then if they don't, they're going to find two dead bodies later on, one of which is the assassination of a priest of the sun god, which is not cool. Like the Fae, not cool. So what happens when they finally get there is they do find a note on the door, and written in Elven, which should say a lot, or written in Elvish. Oh, that's good to know. Return to Castle Shadowcrag. That's good. This campaign, I believe, Theater Nerd, it can go 1 to 10. My players will probably be somewhere between 5 and 8 to complete this campaign, just because of the amount of sessions that we have. They're going to be starting at level 5, and they will level up like every 3 episodes or something like that. So yeah, so it kind of leaves this thing where there is now a threat cast, and I'm never gonna get his name right, Glananin Thelamandrin, who is kind of the ambassador of the Winter Court, has sent this note that gets pinned to the temple, and it kind of says, you can't enter this temple anymore. You can't visit or chant or keep vigil or worship unless or until the priesthood confirms to new practices. So there's an ultimatum given to the priest here of the sun god that says you have to change how you're doing things, or you don't get to worship anymore. Which I imagine doesn't go over very well. Yeah. And so the rest of the time, well, and then you can break out into combat if you want to. And then they have to, yeah, so they'll either fight off, I love this, the Shadow Fey youths, the youths of the Shadow Fey, which include cutthroats and rakes. I love that. So kind of this attack is made, and then when it's all done, of course, your characters immediately are going to go, what's up with the courts? I want to know, what do I know about the Shadow Fey or the Shadow Realms? Some of them are going to know a whole lot. And in my case, I have 3 characters, 1 that is indirectly tied and 2 that are very directly tied to the Shadow Court. So they're going to know a lot more coming into this, which is actually kind of awesome for me. So this is all taking place in the night. I actually think this doesn't take place in the night. Oh, you mean the Shadow Courts when they actually reach the realm? So Zobek is actually not in... Shadow Courts is not actually in the free city of Zobek. They're going to have to travel there, right? It's like a totally different land and place. The Shadow Courts were kind of given to the Fae. So right now they're just starting out in the free city of Zobek, which in my mind, I always tell people, in my mind, Zobek is like Riften. If you play Skyrim, it's like Riften. It's a dock town that sits on a major river. And like I said, is kind of free. And but yes, Shadow Courts is kind of like a night court. They worship the shadows and the darkness. They hate the sun. Thus, their attempt probably against the sun god, if your characters know anything about the Shadow Courts. So they can get some information about Shadow Fey lore. And then it kind of talks about what is available if the assassins flee before you manage to kill them all or question them, or however that pans out with your players. My luck, my players would be like, we're just going to stand here and watch this go down, and then we'll have some questions. This is a lot less effort. Of course, they can find some things on the Fae, blah, 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 including, like, some treasure. So there's a good, like, right? But the most important thing is that they find opals marked with the engraved crest of the Moonlit King. And that's pretty important, along with currency for the Shadow Realm, which they should definitely pocket because they're going to need that later. Yes, exactly. Yes. So the Shadow Fae made a deal with the Night Queen, Sarastra, to, give them what they want, I guess. But it forced them to leave their homes and take up, like permanent residence inside of the Shadow Realm. So Act 1, Scene 1 is pretty simple, right? We get an assassination attempt and how your characters choose to handle it. Easy peasy. I think for me, based on the way the party is shaping out, they're definitely going to have been traveling together for a while. Since 3 of them have direct interest in the Shadow Courts, and one of them is of the Fey bloodline, which is pretty huge. The other is a Fey wizard who is... I don't want to give too much away, but he is... he's a very powerful a wizard. Let's just say that. He's very powerful. I think he's a wizard. Maybe decided on a sorcerer. I can't remember. But one of them is using a lot of the shadow magic, right? So there's 2 tie-ins there. One of the characters is a lost fae, kind of fell out of the Shadow Realm, I guess you could say, or found their way out and then was taken care of by more human type, is kind of the way we're leaning. which means they've been disconnected from their blood and who they are. And so they're seeking to find their way back to the Shadow Realm. But you don't just like waltz into the Shadow Realm. It's well hidden. There are specific spells you have to use to be able to access it, which is kind of the next part of this, right? So the way I'm looking at it is, at 3 of 4 of my players, or 3 or 4 of the PCs, have direct connections with the Shadow Realm, which means they're going to know a little bit more than the average person or folk in Zobek. So they are probably here following up on some things, right? I have this idea in my head that since they've kind of been trying to find a way back to, all of them in their own right, but finding a way back to the Shadow Realm, that they may get the feeling that there's been some shadow magic used inside of Zobek. They may be able to track it, like a Geiger counter kind of a thing. Like they could feel the magical energy of the shadow magic. Especially since I think he's a sorcerer. We have a sorcerer. But I say that because that's what's kind of drawn them here. And then they're going to realize why they got those signals that Zobek has, that somebody here has been using shadow magic, or because they have been. And then there's an assassination attempt. And because this crew is going to have more knowledge than the average folk, right, about the Shadow Realm, they're going to be asked to be the ones to go and seek it out. And in this case, go chat with the courts of the Shadow Fey to figure out why the heck they are requesting. Basically, why do they make an assassination attempt, and why are you forcing Zobek into your politics, I guess you could say? Yes. All right, so let's see what Act 2 says. Disquiet in the city. Might do some investigation. Oh, right. So the time of year is very important, right? This is autumn, right before like the chill of winter is setting in the air. So it looks like following the mayhem, some strange happening. A street has disappeared. The new heralds in black tabards have been spotted on street corners, disclaiming the queen's edicts and disappearing when approached. So there's some kind of insurgency that's happening inside of Zobek, and your players should start to pick up on it. That the Shadow Realm has decided to leave and send its courtly folk, whether it's assassins or brutes or whoever here, to do some kind of bidding for the Shadow Queen inside of Zobek. I love this. It gives 10 strange happenings. Now remember, I'm on a tight time crunch. So as a GM, I'm looking to only pick a few things. So I'm going to pick the things that fit the best. But I think in this case, the Queen's edicts are the most important, because my players need to recognize early on that this is the Queen's doing. I love this. If the party takes no action to investigate, events continue to apace. But the Queen of Night and Magic has given instructions to her hidden ambassador. He, in turn, promulgates a set of edicts to the city by sending out black-cloaked heralds to announce those edicts in Elvish. The characters might hear the first edict directly from the hidden ambassador they are asked to come before the council to speak and offer advice or magical aid. While they are in the city hall chambers, the proceedings are interrupted. The Moonlink King has spoken and upheld his claims, just and remembered. Once the longest night has passed, winter, longest night, the king and queen of the realm of shadow shall rule the lands of Zobek once more, appointing a stadthalter as their royal highness see fit. So basically, the free city of Zobek, for whatever reason, at this point, the Queen of Night and Magic has basically sent spokespeople to tell everyone that's like, look, when winter's done, like once the longest night has passed, we're taking over this city. This is no longer the free city of Zobek. This is now the Shadow Fey Zobek. Oh, that's a great question, Inexperience DM. I shall tell you. So I actually built these right here, these XN and O cards. So what I did was I built macros. So I'm actually gonna, let me move my screen so you can see this, because this is actually on the other side, where like okay. Slide that over for all of you. Okay. So off on your bar, this is actually a great question. I'm going to answer it right now because there's a lot of different ways to do this. These are very simple ones for me, right? So if I hit in card, all it does is drop the letter in chat. It tells me who dropped it and shows just the letter, right? So you do this by building what's known as a macro. In the top right-hand corner, you'll have a list up here called collection. I don't think y'all can see my mouse, can you? Hang on. I can fix that capture. Done. Great. Let's try that again. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, maybe, you can see it looks kind of like a list almost. You're going to click on it. It's going to open up this bar that says macro. And then you're just going to build the macros here. So you can add a fresh one. I'll add one actually that I should do, which is O question mark, which is like the question of how's everybody doing? And then literally all I'm going to do in that macro is type what I'm looking for, right? I can test it. Yeah. So all I'm doing is what's going to appear. I can also do things like specialty roles here if I wanted to. I usually build quick games or 2D20 games really quickly this way. But this is doing is dropping text in the chat. The biggest thing is making sure it's available to all your players, right? And that's it. And then you save it. So now when I go back up here and I pull open my macros again, you'll see in card, O question mark. I need to check in bar, right? Now this is only for me. So I'm going to have my players, when they come in to see these, also do the same thing. They're going to come up to their macros. They'll see the list. They need to check show in macro quick bar, because if I uncheck that, it's not there anymore, right? And then have them check all the blue buttons. And then what that shows is it now drops them below. So you can see they're all there now, including the O question, and each one will, if clicked, will drop into the chat. Yeah, totally. That is literally the quickest and easiest way that I can think to do like a quick X in and O card. There are a lot of other options too. You can do things like make images appear. So if you wanted to have one that was green, yellow, red, you could do that. I've seen that done before, actually over on Trooper's channel. Yeah. So, there you go. Which is important. It's important to have those things. So the Queen's edicts are expressed in papers stuck to the city gates and announced by loud Shadow Fey and goblin carriers to the Crown Square and Green Market at dusk and dawn each day. Interesting. These regulations are annoying but manageable, such as a ban on cursing and an end to the Festival of Light, which of course isn't going to happen till midsummer. Yet those who disobey find themselves unable to sleep well and sometimes find their voices gone for days at a time. Ooh, that's not good. Oh, I love this. Here's a couple word on the street. Here's a word on the street chart, right? Now, this is where things really kick off, right? So probably, I'm like thinking pacing. More than likely, our first session is going to be introduction of characters and the first assassination attempt. And maybe a little bit of like trying to figure out what's going on. By the second episode, more of this is the kind of edicts are going to set into the city, and this is going to happen, which is the big the dream. They have a dream. One night in the character's dream invites them, so this strange visitor invites them to visit Winter's Kiss, the hidden ambassador's home in Zobek. There's just one problem. Nobody in the city seems to have heard of Winter's Kiss. The Fae have kept such a low profile up until now that their ambassador, who has lived in Zobek for decades, is not known by a name or occupation. Instead, ask about the hidden ambassador brings a blank stare from the average person. Yeah, so there you go. So if they, because I imagine for time, because there's a lot of things I have to get through, right? That they're going to push pretty quickly forward on the Winter's Kiss, because that's what gets them on the track towards the Shadow Realm. Yes. So we'll pop over to 1-4, right? And what's cool is like I just clicked that, y'all. That took me exactly where I needed to go. Boop. Which is really nice. So yeah, basically to be able to get through all this module in the amount of time I have, I'm going to be skipping some stuff, and trying to decide what's most important is always the hardest thing. Which is why when you're, like, I've only got 8 sessions, I try to stick to things that happen directly to my players, or to the characters, right? To the PCs. That is, oh, yes, the Shadow Queen is a huge tyrant. That's well said, PH. She is a huge tyrant. But she hides it behind, like, courtly intrigue and, nice edicts sent by her speakers. But I try to stick to things that directly impact my players. So I imagine you could spend 3 or 4 sessions inside of Zobek alone, just trying to deal with things that are happening to people, the edicts that are being brought, the information of who's behind all of this, searching for, of course, this kind of strange winter's kiss. But when I'm going through a module and I'm not writing it myself and I'm trying to get to the crux of what is driving story, I have to focus on the things that directly happen to my players, right? So the assassination attempt isn't directly to them, but the call for help is. The dream, where they are all requested to go find Winter's Kiss, that is 100% totally my players. Now, the rest of everybody in Zobek is also having a hard time sleeping and is also having these odd things happen to them where their voices are being lost if they deny the queen's request, and those kinds of things. But there is a very easy way to write a lot of that into just general perception checks, intelligence checks, and those kinds of things to give them information versus having to play everything out. So I look for direct player interaction. When are my players making choices? When are things happening to them, with them, or around them? And in this case, that's the big thing. And then the quick jump to trying to seek out Winter's Kiss that's their task because they were reached out to in the dream. So those will probably be the first big marks that I hit as I go through this. All right, let's see. Whoa, so here's some other cool things. There's looks like there's a riot that they could come across in the city. The gates are sealed. The Shadow Fey guards only allow a single family member out through the gates at a time. So this is important, and here's why. Is because as the seasons change, the dwarves go back into the mountains, and they take... They leave Zobek and they make the trip back into the mountains or the caves, wherever they're at. Humans might also leave the city, like families and things like that, when Zobek gets cold for the winter. And obviously they are not going to be able to do that if the Shadow Fey are like, sorry, only one of you can leave. Because here's the thing. I imagine that the queen's not letting anybody leave because, one, if everybody leaves, there's nobody to threaten. And two, when all is said and done, she has nobody to rule. She has to keep people inside the city for her plan to actually work. Ooh. Beautiful young women and handsome lads are invited to an evening star ball, which seems like a pleasant time. But many who attend are charmed and seduced and carried away by rakes and fey nobles. Woohoo! Good time. Clearly, they're really awesome people. So again, as we start to come out of this first act, as we come into the third section of Act 1, although the characters might know nothing about the Shadow Fey, the Fey have certainly been speaking to humans, dwarves, and kobolds who know the characters by their growing reputations. And the Fey don't plan on letting such powerful heroes disturb their plans. So again, this is very interesting because the Shadow Fey actually do know these players, or at least are these characters, some of them, because some of them should rightfully belong in the Fey courts, and they don't. So it's one more of a reason... it's one more of a reason for them to try very, very hard to keep these PCs out. This is important. The information they gain makes it clear to the Shadow Fey that the characters are a threat. So at some point, the Fey target the characters for an assassination. Nothing like another good assassination attempt. You know, I'm getting this vibe from the Fey Queen that's kind of like, she doesn't really deal with her problems. I don't think she deals with her problems very well. I think she just assassinates them. Anybody else getting that vibe? I'm getting that vibe. Choose a time for this encounter when the party has just defied the Shadow Fey in public or defeated one of their agents when the party is close to figuring it out what's going on. So this is a very, very minimal act. And honestly, I could wrap this assassination attempt into any information gathering or like conversing that they're doing on the streets of Zobek within the first 2 games. Yeah, no solution like a permanent solution. So there are 2 more scenes in this act, right? Scene 4 is, of course, seeking out this hidden ambassador. So really what's probably going to happen is 2 and 3 will get squished into the second session. And if I have it my way, I may even squeeze part of 4 in there where, like, they actually source out this ambassador they're looking for, the Winter's Kiss, but don't actually get to speak to them, right? Another great cliffhanger. That moment where you meet someone and you're like, but I'm like, sorry, next week. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I imagine the first episode is always long because you got to do character introductions, you got to figure out who these people are. There's clearly going to be a combat. Second one is going to be a lot of question asking, a lot of social combat and interactions, and trying to suss out intelligence roles, trying to suss out what is going on here, specifically around the Shadow Fey. And then hopefully by the 3rd episode, I will either be out of Act 1 or on the road towards finding their way into the Shadow Courts, because the real crux of this module is actually not in Zobek, right? This is just the setup. So as the characters have likely already learned, mundane attempts to locate Winter's Kiss are no help at all. But some spells might prove useful. This is one of the things I love about Kobold Press and their modules. They give some really great insights. This makes me think of Divinity Original Sin. You know, in Divinity Original Sin, you cannot speak to animals unless you have a way to speak to animals. And if you can't talk to animals, you miss a ton of information, stories, I wouldn't say the main story, stories, and missions that you could have had, but you don't. So this is cool because you could speak to animals. Given the friendly nature aspect of the Fae, this spell works better than one might expect. A bird, or even a rat might know what Winter's Kiss is located near the Arcane Collegium or near the Market District. So this is interesting because I have a druid in my group, and this druid is a far traveler. I imagine they spend a lot of time in and out of like various wilderness settings, but to finally have a way, like to finally be inside of city and be able to talk to, say, the rats, or ask them a question is going to be something that no other like character can do. So I would make a big and important note of that for myself as a GM so that I can push my druid player to have a great moment of discovery in a way that nobody else can in the party, which offers really personal moment that gives a lot of depth to a character, or can give a lot of depth to a character. Divination. More precise than speak with animals, the spell yields following truthful reply. Lost Fae souls guard the ancient stones where red caps once hung. This reference alludes to the House of the Red Caps, which was the Strauss counting house before the Great Revolt. Oh, okay, great, okay. So again, it's like, who has knowledge of Zobek? Because this was a location that's been repurposed since the Great Revolt. So if anybody was here, it was in Zobek before it was the free city of Zobek. Legend Lore is another spell that they could use. Works perfectly to locate the Winter's Kiss, but if the characters have easy access to this magic, they might be too powerful for the adventure as written. I don't actually know. I don't know what level Legend Lore is. I should look that up. Because I did want my players to come into this with some, let's see, Legend Lore. It is a 5th level divination spell. None of my players right away should have access to that, so I don't even have to worry about that. Interesting. If the characters don't cooperate. I love how Kobold Press has always got my back as a GM because they know that my players are going to do stuff like, you know what, winter's coming. The Fae really aren't doing that bad. We're just going to wait it out. We're going to wait out and see how it goes. If that's the case, they give you an option for the party that waits it out. Um, and then, of course, becomes, once they locate Winter's Kiss, then we get to the big question, which is what the heck is actually going on here? And this is called Dogs at the Door, this act, which I love. Once they discover how to reach and parlay with him, the house seems ordinary when the party first arrives. Right, so there's some things going on here. Looks like they have a way to talk their way in as well as fight. Looks like they're going to get an invitation. If they fail to talk their way in, Candor Mine politely asks them to leave. Winter's Kiss is guarded by a large number of hounds and wolves. The encounter below should run at least twice. Oh, interesting. So if they choose to attack and force their way in, there's going to be a big encounter there. This is important. If the characters gain entry to Winter's Kiss without violence, award each character 2,000 XP. For me, probably what I'll do is if they manage to do that and get all this information, at the end of this, they'll all just level up. It's true. In the Zobec Gazetteer, there is a write-up on the Strauss family along with their rise and fall. And you can find that over on our store, everyone, if you want to go check that out. Zobec Gazetteer is probably one of my most used PDFs from Kobold Press, because so much happens inside of Zobec, and really understanding how a city functions gives it a life of its own. And there's a lot of history in Zobec that applies, as you can see, like out and elsewhere. If the party passes muster, Cantor Mine bids them welcome to the Winter's Kiss and asks for each character's name and rank so that he can announce them. Once he has satisfied that score, he ushers them inside. The servant leads you down. I love this. They have to give their rank. I dig that. I look forward to seeing what rank they give. The White Owl is the sorcerer Freya, Owl's daughter. The rake remains at the door, politely not watching, blah, blah, blah. The party includes a speaker of Elvish, blah, blah. The ambassador then explains why he wanted to meet the party. So this is the big, this is not necessarily the inciting incident for Act 1, but it is the thing that drives them into Act 2. This is the mission, right? This is the start. Wanted to invite you. Listen well. Servants bring us goblets, super wine, blah, blah, blah. All my spies tell me so, and thus your open and heartfelt support for the Queen's just and proper rule will make things easier for you all. Oh, I see what he's coming up in here, and he's like, I just wanted to tell you, we know who you are, and it would be a lot easier on all of us if you would just accept. Just let the Queen do what she wants to do. Just let her. She's the Queen. Let her do her thing. I require immediate word of honor that you will not attempt further armed insurrection against the just and proper rule of this city. Free city of Zobec, y'all. But sure. Sure, Fey Queen. You keep telling yourself. Go ahead. Go ahead, Shadow Queen. You keep telling yourself you rule the city. And to be clear, I mean the Queen. If you have any other thoughts, discard them unless you can somehow change her mind. She can and will rule over everything as soon as humans learn their claim is just and her rule inevitable. Perhaps she will arrive in procession in full splendor to cowl the weak. This is, as blatantly stated right here, potential for some heated conversation, because not everyone may feel this way, right? Oh, the ambassador does not yield a single point if the characters argue in favor of what he calls humans ruling lands that do not belong to them. To give them incentive to see things his way, he offers them titles, such as a Lord of Zobec, or Mortal Magister to the Court Shadows, or even Master of the Faithful for a cleric, if it helps. I love this. He's like, all right, let me give you a title. Let me give you a title. Yeah, Shadow Queen for Ruler 2021. Oh, that's smarmy. If he asks about earlier assassinations, he simply declares that a change of administration. That's some BS right there is what that is. So it looks like they can roll to see if he's holding things back but not revealing the full truth of his opinions on the matter. Okay, so then, of course, we get a little history lesson of their the Fey involvement, right, with Zobec specifically. Oh, okay. This is not good. Okay, so there's a couple options. So first off, if they try to go against this ambassador, he's basically going to say, no, the Queen's writ is law in his eyes, and basically anything they say is treasonous. Otherwise, it's treasonous. They could try to discuss the mayor of Zobek and talk about the free city, the rights of the citizens, or the worship of Rava and the sun god. But of course, the ambassador is going to be super offended by that. And then he's going to ask if they're enemies of the court. Ooh! And if he is not satisfied with the answer, he calls on the sorceress, the death wisp, and possibly the Shadow Fey to cover his retreat. If the characters claim to want to fight against the queen, the hidden ambassador is happy to oblige them. I love this. With great role-playing and clever questions, you can dispense this information according to the situation or make it available to the players. Wow. This is going to be a fun scene. This is one of the things I'm most looking forward to about this campaign is that amount of social combat that they're going to be up against. Like, I mean, obviously they could just hack and slash everything and die early on, or they can be smart and ask clever questions, try to trick the Fae, right? Play into their egos. And I think that makes this a very unique campaign. Makes this a very unique campaign. Right, so it looks like this Freya, who's the owl sorceress, and the death wisp will cover the ambassador's retreat. Wow. And it looks like there is a door. A heavy tapestry conceals the door to the ambassador. Went through elvish writing in mithril and studded with shining green jewels covers its surface. The door's not trapped or warded. The inscription is written in an unusual dialect. These chambers are not for you, mortals, and not for those who have never looked upon the Shadow's forest. Those who pass against the ambassador's wishes will meet his soldiers and join his army of servants. The mithril jewels can be pried out. Surprise, surprise. Gotta take that loot. There's a trap on the door, so it seems that there is some kind of trap. Discharged magical trap. If the party does not fight the ambassador, but instead chooses to roleplay through the scene and fares well, the ambassador gives each character a golden glass goblet fit for a royal feast. So he's like, you gotta bring, it's not only BYOB, but it's BYOC. You gotta bring your own cup, or BYOG, bring your own goblet. And you can't just bring any goblet. No solo cups in the Fae's court, y'all. You gotta bring your own glass goblet, golden glass goblet. Yeah, red solo cup on a stem. Okay, and the sorcerer grants them a boon of a visit from a tailor for not behaving like so many louts we have entertained in this simple home. This gift takes the form of a pair of silk and black leather bracers of defense for an arcane or Fae character. And possibly the sorceress Freya's owl daughter will reappear as they ally later in the adventure. All right, interesting. So she may come back, but only if they don't fight. Oh, thanks, Crit Witch. Yeah, time management's hard, right? Because there is literally no way I could play through all of this, and I've got 4 acts to get through, which basically means really I need to try to get all of Act 1 into kind of 2 episodes. I'm gonna be honest. Which means I've got to really push them forward in their discovery of what's going on in Zobek and get them the heck out of Zobek. Because if I'm right, the next thing that pops up here, oh, look at that. Look at that picture, is going to be Right, so they take a trip along the Shadow Roads. Why don't I see that? Ah, down here. I skipped. And then they've got to finding the Shadow Road ritual. So yeah, so basically what I'm seeing is either they are going to follow him into this door. If the party goes through the door behind the tapestry where the ambassador fled into the ballroom, they are immediately beset by the ambassador and his allies. If he can chant for 4 rounds, he opens a shadow portal and escapes. See, there's some opportunity here, right? So if they choose to go that route and they manage to survive the combat, and he opens this shadow portal, they could jump in behind him and go straight into the shadow realm, and I would actually skip all of scene 6 and 7, from what I can tell. Because the Shadow Road is a pretty important part of this too. So I'm already thinking, like, how do I get this information down? How do I pace myself across the first 2 or 3 episodes? Yeah, exactly, Clayton. Yeah, the meeting with the ambassador is about setting the tone for why the queen is kind of doing what she's doing and giving the players some meat to kind of munch on as they source out what they're going to do when they get to the shadow courts, because that is, of course, the big thing. Yeah, so you can see there is deadly stuff here, right? Just looking. Yeah. So there's a couple things that you could kind of like do here, right? If I needed to save time, I would not make them go find the ritual. I would make them instead try to break the trap on this door and let this door be the door to the Shadow Realm, which I know is not how the campaign is written, but it still gets me where they need to go, right? And then I kind of skip over 6 and go straight to 7. But I need to read through scene 6 and make sure there's nothing in this that they need for story, because I may have to find a different way to give it to them if that is the route that we have to go, because pacing. Speaking of pacing and timing, we are coming down to our hour once again. How does this keep happening? So quickly. It all goes so quickly. So, this is me telling all of you that all of this prep and effort is starting up Monday night. Monday night, right here in Kobold Press. Now, for those of you that may be across the pond or unable to join us for the 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern game, you can catch us over on YouTube, right? Because all of our stuff gets archived over to YouTube, so you'll want to make sure to check it out over there. Questions. I'm just gonna leave a little bit of space. I had a question earlier I tried to answer on the spot, right, about setting up X and O cards directly using a macro, which I think is kind of literally the simplest and easiest. It is like straight to the point, right? But if there are other questions, now's a kind of good time to ask them. I'm still at a place where I'm kind of like sussing through, reading through, and the next thing that I would probably do in my prep today would be to get through Act 1 and Act 2, so I know where the first third of this game is going to kind of be and what I can kind of expect. My players, or my PCs, because I've got a bard, a warlock, a druid, and I think we have somebody that's up in the air. There were a couple options. Maybe a cleric was talked about, a cleric and a sorcerer. So we don't actually have heavy combatants, I guess we'll say. So I am going to work very, very, very hard. Oh no, my web captioner closed out. I'm going to work very, very, very hard to to put them in more social combat or ways in which they can use their magic and less like expectation. But if I have it my way, there's going to be a duel. We're going to have a duel. I need a duel. I need a courtly duel when they finally get there. Oh, PH has got a question. This is interesting. It's like editing a movie down for release. Every scene you can be like, can I cut this? Yeah, and it's hard, right? Because cut means like, get rid of it. It's not necessary. And sometimes there is that, right? Like, if I had the next 4 months to run this campaign with this group of people, we would go through every one of these combats. We would, I would have started them at a lower level. They would work up to level 10. But I think, hey, 12-sided guy, welcome in. I think the hard thing is deciding, like, who are your most important NPCs, right? So this ambassador is very clearly the most important. And if this sorceress, right, this owl sorceress is going to come back, Freya, is going to return, she's probably pretty important, right? How much of this, like, information about what happened in Zobek between the Fae can I rightfully assume the PCs know? 3 of 4 are going to know quite a lot about the history of the Fae. And then how much can I put into, say, a narration piece at the top of the game, which allows us to, like, it's almost like replacing it. It's like, okay, it's this big, let's make it this big. And instead of it being an in the moment thing, what if it's prologue, right? So if I set my whole audience as well as my players up for that information, does it have to be redelivered? No, it shouldn't have to be. It can be done quicker, faster, simpler. Yeah, strip it for parts. Oh, God, I love Wolfgang. Strip it for parts and make it your own. That's exactly what it is. This thing is chocked full of just great parts, really functional parts, really awesome things. And it's like, what do you strip? What parts do you take to build your own wacky racer? Harder, better, faster, stronger. Great question there at the end. So if you joined us today and you join us again on Monday, you'll get to see what parts I strip and bring into the campaign over the next 8 weeks, which is pretty exciting. And I can go ahead and tell all of you as we kind of wrap up our day. So don't forget, you can get your hands on Courts of the Shadow Fey. You can get a PDF over on our website, but you can also, if you want to run this, get this completely built out. I'm going to just show y'all. Literally. Everything is here in Roll20. And we'll show it to you, right? So you can see where to start, right? You got all your adventure pieces. All of your maps are preloaded. You've got tokens ready to go, which is pretty sweet. You've got each of the acts broken down. You've got really cool, one of my favorite things actually, and we read this last time, and I'm just going to show it to you, is the letter from Wolfgang. I love this letter. It has inspired this campaign for me and how I'm going about this campaign. So you should check that out. Oh, very nice, 12-sided guy, yeah. Mother Magpie, I like that. This talks about elitism as villainy, right? And it was really inspirational as I read through this, because it's very easy to take a campaign like this. I'm going to come back over to myself. It's very easy to take a campaign that uses elitism, uses classism. I guess you could say there is some racism in it, right? And how do you use that and still make it a safe place? How do you meet the lines and veils of your players? So one of the things I did during my session 0 was I told them that for this game, it's not that this game is about elitism, it's about classism. It's actually about the thematizing of classism, right? The villainy of elitism. What we're doing is actually, through telling this story, shedding light on the problems of that, not just lifting it up as an important part of story. Oh, thanks for the bits. Thank you. 100 bits from 12-sided guy. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure all the kobolds in the Warrens do too. So, one of it is like, how do you frame things, right? I as the GM, am never going to frame, the queen thinks she's right, but we all have to know that the queen is wrong. That coming into, no matter how things used to be, coming into a free city and claiming it as your own because you don't like how things went down in the past and you lost your land is not okay. But then we also, our session 0 had the conversation about slavery. It got brought up, right? A lot of courts have indentured servitude, which is a form of slavery. And a lot of these things. And as I got to reading it, I was like, how interesting would it be to rethink how to handle some of those topics, right? What if you get to the shadow courts and there is nobody in chains? Everybody that works in the shadow courts is paid a wage. They choose to be there. It makes for almost it's like I told a friend the other day, I was like, the shadow courts, what if I treated them less like this kind of hierarchical scale where if you're not up here, you're in chains and you serve everybody else? What if it's more like corporate America? right? Not in that it's actually corporatized, but that it's not slavery because we pay you to do a job. But corporate America is not a great place. People get used all the time and in different ways that don't fall under the headliner of this or this, but is kind of the mistreatment of people, right? What is it like to get to the courts and then have to see for the first time like that nobody's a slave, everybody's here by choice, everybody's having a great time? Or I had somebody be like, well, what if they execute people if they don't do it? No, they don't execute. They ain't got the energy for that, right? The queen's having to send out her best assassins anyways into Zobek, and you know that they're being used over there, so why do that? They would be exiled, but they're not going to be exiled from the Fey courts, because then she loses followership, right? You don't want to get rid of people from the Fey courts. No, all you do is just say they're not part of the courts anymore. They can't leave the Shadow Realm, but they're not part of the courts, which means now it's your reputation that has taken the fall. I have a character named HR. Yeah, exactly. Ostracized, persona non grata. That is way, way, way more impactful for the courts than, say, just kicking them out, right? Because if you kick people out, you slowly lose followership, and you're not a queen if you don't have anybody to rule. So it's a very interesting thing where I'm taking a lot of very hard topics that could easily come to the forefront in a campaign like this. Topics that I, as a GM, don't particularly like to have at my table, that my players brought concern to the table about, and I'm twisting them on their head to make it more of a commentary on these issues. And actually it's challenged me as a GM. Like, how do you have this court system with rankings and hierarchical scale and no slaves? Right? That challenged me. I was like, what does that look like? Right? What does that look like? Yeah, interns. There you go, PH. Another form of slavery, in my opinion. The free internship world of America. But yeah, I think that's really, really, really important. And reputation is a huge part of this adventure, right? There's a literal ranking scale where you can't even speak to the Fey Queen until you reach a certain rank. And I saw PH asked a question in chat. PH asked, is there anybody in the party that's of noble courts? There is. But then the question is, why? What did they do that is so bad that they don't actually get to be a part of the courts anymore? They are nobility, and they're Shadow Fey nobility. But then why are they in Zobek? Why are they seeking a way back home? What happened? So there's this intrigue around just the player character stories that are building that have added some really interesting tensions that I think are going to be just as important, if not more interesting, than what I might pull directly off this page that can show some of that elitism as villainy. So I'm very, very excited. Yeah, I'm very, very excited. Yeah, she doesn't even go here. And we, the Shadow Fey wears pink only on... No, we don't wear pink. We only wear black and gold. Sorry, we don't wear pink. But yeah, this is the Mean Girls campaign, and I'm very excited to kind of see what happens because we're starting out in a place that's not really in the Shadow Fey courts. They're just trying to force their structure on Zobek. So we get to start in this other place that's like, no, these are free people, right? Da, 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 da. But then what happens when they leave that and actually go back to the Shadow Fey courts? And now your status in the world actually affects who the heck you can talk to, right? So should be very exciting. Right here on Kobold Press, Monday night, 7 p.m., the premiere of Courts of the Shadow Fey. I am so excited to be running this, and I can tell all of you, in addition, we're going to have another actual play coming in, we're in April. We're going to have another one coming in June. I had to figure out my dates. The first Tuesday in June, which I actually believe is June 1st, kicks off our campaign of the Scarlet Citadel. So for those of you that have been waiting and want to see the Scarlet Citadel in full action and supported that module or that campaign, well, guess what? We're going to have a 6-week run of that here starting in June as well, so you can gear up for that. I want to thank you all for joining me today. We had some new folks in chat. So thank you for coming to hang out with us. Thanks for chatting all things Kobold Press. Thanks for getting me hyped as a GM for Monday night. I always get excited to talk to other people and bounce my ideas off of you. For the rest of you, thanks for returning to the Warrens and spending your Kobold or your Wednesday with me here on Kobold Press. Hey there, Agnostic Trek. We are just wrapping up our day. I'm glad to see you joining us here for the end. Don't forget, like I said, Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, 4 p.m. Pacific. I think that makes it midnight GMT. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, me too, Rick. Rick, I'm glad you joined us as well. So if you're gonna miss it. Actually, let me say this. If you're unable to join us Monday night live, don't fret. You can always catch it on YouTube, which means you have no excuse not to miss it. We'll have the rest of the character announcements coming out over the next few days. So make sure to check our social media if you want to see who's going to be a part of the campaign. And we're going to kick off strong Monday night. Right here. And don't forget, you can join me next Wednesday, same Kobold time, same Kobold channel for another Kobold chat, and Mr. Tarask will be back with us. And I believe our topic up for discussion between myself and him, he's a big time Kobold lover, Kobold Press lover. He uses a lot of Midgard and Midgard like storylines and lore at his table, and a lot of Kobold Press products. He's got just great GMing tips. Like last week, he blew my mind with one of them, which is just great. So we're going to be talking about using contemporary inspirations and cultural mythologies in your campaigns, and how to do that without appropriation, but to do it and to, you know, like how do I talk about the inspirations from modern day that I put into my campaigns and help build my stories, and then how do I also pull from history without appropriating other cultures. So I think that's going to be a really interesting conversation. So make sure that you join us, like I said, same Kobold time, same Kobold channel next week. So I will see you all then. Until then, you know, be excellent to everyone, to yourself too. Be excellent to each other and to yourself, because that's really important. I will see you all. I'm going to leave you with this adorable video by Jenny, and I'll see you all Monday night. Have a great afternoon.
It's alive. It's alive! It's alive! It's... Ah, dang it. This happens every time I try to create a fun and exciting new monster to challenge my players. Sometimes I want to go beyond the classic monsters and hit them with something they've never seen before, but I can't seem to get the hang of conceptualizing, creating, and using my own homebrew monsters.
Why don't you try the Kobold Guide to Monsters?
Yes, it is alive! Wait, Kobold Guide to what?
Monsters. It's a book from Kobold Press in which master writers from across the gaming industry share their simple but effective step-by-step processes for creating your own monsters.
That does sound useful. What kind of stuff does it cover?
How to write great descriptions, motivations, and psychology to drive your monster's behavior, how to use its environment and resources, and even realistic alternatives to just fighting, so your encounters have variety.
That sounds amazing. Where do I get my copy?
From koboldpress.com. Don't worry, there's a link in the description.
But do you think I really need it? After all, I made you. Maybe I'm already a master of monsters.
Oh no, I'm very bad. You did a bad job.
You look fine.
No, trust me, I don't have any bloodlust at all. In fact, I'd really like to try gardening.
Why does this keep happening? Fine. Ask the land kraken to get you a trowel. He's probably in the kitchen making cupcakes.